Yeah, it is.
Oh, yeah, it was off. So nobody heard anything I said.
Can you check it?
Mataji, can you hear?
Yeah, yes, we can hear now.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So today we're on chapter 2, and it's text 48. Yugasta Kurukarmani, Sangam Tyakpa Dhananjaya, Siddhya Siddhayo Samo Bhutva Samadvam Yoga Uchite. And Krishna says to Arjuna, perform your duty, equipoised, O Arjuna. Equipoised means being neutral, not being disturbed by anything. Just focus on what you have to do, but not to be disturbed by whatever happens. Either you will conquer or you will lose, or be conquered, but not be disturbed. In other words, just keep your mind concentrated on the work you have to do. And not only the work you have to do, you keep your mind concentrated on Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, so therefore, perform your duty equipoised, or Arjuna, abandoning all attachment to success or failure. Such equanimity is called yoga. Okay, so the devotee should not be disturbed whether they're successful or whether they're not successful. They should be determined to continue doing their service in spite of success or failure. And you can only do that if you give up the sense of proprietorship and completely depend on Krishna. So Krishna tells Arjuna that he should act in yoga. And what is that yoga? Yoga means to concentrate the mind upon the Supreme by controlling the ever-disturbing senses. And who is the Supreme? The Supreme is Lord Krishna. And because he himself is telling Arjuna to fight, Arjuna has nothing to do with the results of the fight. Gain or victory are Krishna's concern. Arjuna is simply advised to act according to the dictation of Krishna. The following of Krishna's dictation is real yoga, and this is practiced in the process called Krishna consciousness. By Krishna consciousness only can one give up the sense of proprietorship. One has to become the servant of Krishna, or the servant of the servant of Krishna. That is the right way to discharge duty in Krishna consciousness, which alone can help one to act in yoga. Arjuna is a Kshatriya, and as such, is participating in the Varnashram Dharma institution. It is said in the Vishnu Purana that in the Varnashrama Dharma, the whole aim is to satisfy Vishnu. No one should satisfy himself, as is the rule in the material world, but one should satisfy Krishna. So unless one satisfies Krishna, one cannot correctly observe the principles of Varnashram Dharma. Indirectly, Arjuna was advised to act as Krishna told him. So Krishna's dictation is real yoga. So everything that we see now that's called yoga is not yoga. It's boga. Look up the meaning of boga. Boga basically means nonsense. Something false.
Boga.
Boga.
Enjoy, consume, indulge, experience, sensual pleasure, pleasure without attachment.
Boga?
Enjoyment or pleasure.
Enjoyment, sensual pleasure, experience, indulge, delight.
Okay, that's the wrong word then. Mhm.
It's a Sanskrit word. bhoga.
Sanskrit word bhoga.
Yeah, that's the wrong word. So there's yoga and there's bogey. Bogey yoga. Look up bogey. Yeah, bogey.
Enjoyer.
Bogey is an enjoyer. Mm. All right, I'm getting it wrong, so we'll keep reading till we find the word correctly. So anyway, Krishna tells Arjuna he should act in yoga. And what is that yoga? Yoga means to concentrate the mind upon the Supreme or the Supreme Personality of Godhead by controlling the ever-disturbing senses. And who is the Supreme? The Supreme is the Lord or Lord Krishna. And Krishna himself is telling Arjuna to fight. So Arjuna has nothing to do with the results of the fight. Gain or victory are Krishna's concern. Arjuna is simply advised to act according to the dictation of Krishna. The following of Krishna's dictation is real yoga. Krishna conscious, and this is practiced in the process called Krishna consciousness. By Krishna consciousness only can one give up the sense of proprietorship. One has to become the servant of Krishna or the servant of the servant of Krishna. That is the right way to discharge duty in Krishna consciousness, which alone can help one to act in yoga. So Arjuna is a Kshatriya, and as such, he is participating in the Varnashram Dharma institution. It is said in the Vishnu Purana that in the Varnashram Dharma, the whole aim is to satisfy Vishnu. No one should satisfy himself, as is the rule in the material world, but one should satisfy Krishna. So unless one satisfies Krishna, one cannot correctly observe the principles of Varnashram Dharma. Indirectly, Arjuna was advised to act as Krishna told him. Okay, so we have a couple major points here. One is that by Krishna consciousness only can one give up the sense of proprietorship. That is very important. One can become the servant of Krishna or the servant of Krishna. That is the right way to discharge duty in Krishna consciousness, which alone can help one to act in yoga. So this, in other words, following Krishna's dictation is real yoga. In other words, whatever Krishna says to Arjuna, Arjuna is obliged to follow it, since he's the devotee of Krishna. And this following of Krishna's dictation is real yoga. So, and this is practiced in the process called Krishna consciousness. So, how do we follow Krishna's dictation? Well, we have to hear what Krishna says. And what does he say? Perform your duty equiposed, O Arjuna, abandoning all attachment to success or failure. Such equanimity is called yoga. So here we see that yoga without Krishna is nonsense, right? It's a aberration. It is a deviation. And why? Because following of Krishna's dictation is real yoga. And this is practiced in the process called Krishna consciousness. So Krishna dictates. He says, Konteha pratijanihi name bhakta pranasati. Declared boldly, Arjuna, that my devotee will never perish. Well, he's dictating there. And he dictates in many places throughout the Shastras. And therefore, following Krishna's dictation is real yoga. Okay. Only by following Krishna consciousness can one give up the sense of proprietorship. Okay, now that's a major point. How do you give up I mean, people work so hard to evolve or develop proprietorship. And here he's saying that one has to give up proprietorship. Oh, actually, it doesn't say you have to give up proprietorship. It says you have to give up the sense of proprietorship.
There's a difference.
Huh?
There's a difference between giving up proprietorship and sense of proprietorship.
Yes. When you give up the sense of proprietorship, you understand that Krishna is the proprietor. If you give up proprietorship, you'll be out in the street or something like that. Well, yeah, you won't be diligent in maintaining things. You don't care. But yeah, the number one is we have to act according to the dictation of Krishna. The following of dictation, Krishna's dictation, is real yoga. Okay, that's one. And by following the dictation of Krishna, one can give up the sense of proprietorships. Okay, so giving up the sense of proprietorship doesn't mean you give up proprietorship. You become the custodian of proprietorship on behalf of Krishna. Look up that word, custodian. That means you're going to take care of things without falsely thinking you own them.
Or looks after something.
Right. So I remember some years ago, about 7 years ago, maybe 6 years ago, when we had, I had some property in, was it in Bellevue or somewhere? And at a certain point, there was this one devotee. It wasn't actually a devotee, but it was a volunteer, and he was there most of the time, maintaining that place. And then we had to get rid of it, and he refused to move out. And he acted as if it belonged to him. So, of course, we stopped paying the rent, and he wasn't paying the rent, right? So, what happened was eventually the owner kicked him out. But there was a period where he said he owned the place. I think at least for 3 months or more, he claimed to own the place because he was there most of the time. But there was a false sense of proprietorship. So rather than get involved with him myself, I just said, okay, we'll just leave and tell the owner that we're not going to pay any more rent. We left, right? And then it's up to him to get rid of that person, and he did. The person thought that he owned the place, and he did. He looked like he owned the place for some months, but then owner eventually threw him out. Okay, so in the same way, by Krishna consciousness only can one give up the sense of proprietorship. So if you give up the sense of proprietorship, does it mean that, okay, you walk away, you don't care anymore? Not in Krishna consciousness. Because everything belongs to Krishna. So whatever comes our way, and everybody has something, nobody's, living in the wilderness, and whatever we have, we should learn how to use it in Krishna's service. But we should give up the sense of proprietorship. What is that? That means that whatever we have, we should use it in service of Krishna. That's the way you give up the sense of proprietorship. Like, for example, you have a house and you have a kitchen. So in the kitchen, you can cook sweets for the deity and then take it to the temple and offer it to the deity. So you're using your house in the service of Krishna. The Krishna consciousness only, by Krishna consciousness only can one give up the sense of proprietorship. One has to become the servant of Krishna or the servant of the servant of Krishna. That is the right way to discharge duty in Krishna consciousness, which alone can help one to act in yoga. Okay. The main point, unless one satisfies Krishna, one cannot correctly observe the principles of Varnashram Dharma. Indirectly, Arjuna was advised to act as Krishna told him. So there's Krishna who is dictating to Arjuna, and Krishna is acting as the spiritual master of Arjuna. And in life, the spiritual master is a representative of Krishna. It's a bona fide spiritual master. And therefore, the disciples should listen to the instruction of the spiritual master. Now, because we teach Bhagavad Gita as it is, the disciple has an opportunity to understand if the teacher deviates from Krishna's teaching. See, if like in the case of Sadhguru, he said, I don't read literature. Well, then the disciple has no way of knowing what he's saying is bona fide or not bona fide, because there's no point of validation. But when the point of validation is Bhagavad Gita as it is, and Srimad Bhagavatam as it is. So that's why we teach people what is said by Krishna to Arjuna, who is the quintessential disciple. And when Krishna is instructing Arjuna, he's also instructing us. So therefore, we have a means to validate if someone is bona fide or not. And it says here, the following of Krishna's dictation is real yoga. And this is practiced in a process called Krishna consciousness. And then by Krishna consciousness only can one give up the sense of proprietorship. So the sense of proprietorship is something that's overwhelming everyone in the world. This is mine. Okay. But actually, we should say, yes, I am managing this house, or I am managing this business, etc. But I'm doing it on behalf of Krishna. It actually belongs to Krishna, and therefore it should be used in Krishna's service. The car should be used in Krishna's service. The house should be used in Krishna's service, and everything we have should be used somehow or other in Krishna's service.
So the other meaning of custodian is caretaker, Maharaj.
Caretaker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Guard.
Yeah.
Keeper. Curator.
Yes.
Basically protector.
Yeah. So you can use that, like the Pujari is the curator of the deities, guardian. Not only of the deities, but of the temple also. The devotees also. And they protect the temple. Okay. So Prabhupada says, one has to become the servant of Krishna or the servant of Krishna. That is the right way to discharge duty in Krishna consciousness, which alone can help one to act in yoga. So someone who claims to be a devotee but is not actually surrendered to a bona fide guru, they can do anything, and call it service. And they can also be immune to taking good advice. They don't recognize another, bona fide authority. So everything in Krishna consciousness is hierarchical. Look that word up, hierarchical. So you have brahmacharis and you have vanaprasthas and you have sannyasis and so forth. That's hierarchical. What? Of rank.
Yeah. Arranged in order of rank.
Yeah. So someone's just in the movement, so they're in brahmachari. Someone becomes more advanced in the movement, and they become temple presidents, let's say. Someone becomes more advanced in the movement, they become a sannyasi. And someone becomes more advanced, they become a guru. Like that, it's hierarchical. There's different layers of responsibility that people have. And ultimately, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So everybody, no matter who they are or what rank they are, they have to follow Krishna's dictation. And that's real yoga. Yoga means how to connect to Krishna. So how do you connect to Krishna? Is by following his dictation. What is his dictation? Well, he says there's 4 things you should do and 4 things you shouldn't do. So you have to follow those. You should avoid the 4 things you shouldn't do, and you should practice or do the 4 things you should do. In other words, now you're following Krishna's dictation. And you're going to notice that in this purport and in the next purport, the word dictation is used many times. When I say many times, it's used 3 or 4 times. So here it says that it says, Arjuna is simply advised to act according to the dictation of Krishna. 1. Following Krishna's dictation. 2 is real yoga. And this is practiced in a process called Krishna consciousness. By Krishna consciousness only can one give up the sense of proprietorship. One has to become the servant of Krishna or servant of the servant of Krishna. That is the right way to discharge duty in Krishna consciousness, which alone can help one to act in yoga. And then in the next verse, what does it say? There are 2 verses together.
Yeah.
Where the word dictation is repeated many times.
You're talking.
Let me see.
6.6.
Which is not it.
6.6, man.
That's 6.6.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
6.7 and 6.6.
Yeah, okay. Let's read that and see. For him who has, 6.6. For him who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, his mind will remain the greatest enemy. Okay, so in that verse,
4 times dictation.
dictation is mentioned 4 times in that purport.
Yeah.
And in the next purport, it's mentioned
5 times.
4 or 5 times. Yeah.
5 times.
Yes. So you can see how important it is to follow the dictation of the Lord. whenever in Sanskrit, whenever something is repeated 3 times or more, it means it's of utmost importance. Utmost importance. And one has to follow it. Otherwise, they'll be remiss, or they'll be not following correctly. Okay. So now we'll go to the next verse. Are there any questions anyone would like to ask? Oh, we're out of time. All right.
So Maharaj, I have a question.
Yeah.
So in the verse we have discussed today,
Yeah.
it's written or it is mentioned purport that the ultimate uh, goal is to satisfy Krishna or make Krishna or please Krishna.
Yeah.
So how do we ensure that what we are doing and Krishna is satisfied or uh,
If Guru is satisfied, Krishna is satisfied. If you have bona fide Guru and Guru is satisfied with your service, it means Krishna is satisfied. If it's bona fide Guru.
okay?
Okay? Not complicated. Any other question? That was a good question.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. I
Yes.
have one question.
Yes.
So Maharaj, in this, I think previous purport or this, I don't recall. It was mentioned that the result, we should not care about the result, right? It is up to Krishna whether
Yeah, it
our
says
efforts
in
should.
the text 47, work with results becomes the cause of bondage. Therefore,
Yeah.
such work is not auspicious. Everyone has his proprietary right in regard to prescribed duties, but should act without attachment to the result. Such disinterested, obligatory duties doubtlessly lead one to the path of liberation. Okay, go ahead.
So, if we should not attach to the results, I mean, it theoretically is makes sense, but in the general tendency is right. If we are doing any activity, if it does not get successful in the first attempt, the general tendency is to try again. Right.
Yes.
So, is that okay? Then how do we understand? How many times do we keep trying, and is it then not good to retry, because then we are saying, oh, maybe Krishna didn't want that result. I should not retry. Or where should that line be drawn?
Okay. That depends on how much perseverance you have. If you fail once, twice, three times, then it might be an indication that you're doing the wrong thing. But it depends what the thing is. Right? A Prabhupada says, go and open a temple. So maybe you can't open a big temple right away, but you can open your house to be a temple. Right? And then later on, when it becomes more developed, you might be able to rent a temple, a building. And then when that gets more developed, you can eventually buy a building that's a temple. Okay. But even if you buy a temple, but nobody is coming, then it's a failure. Now, the failure should not be, let's say, you shouldn't think that after 1 month it's a failure, oh, I'm going to give up. It took me at least 10 to 12 years before the movement started to, more people started to come and some people began to get initiated, things like that. 12 years. Good thing I didn't give up. My wife kept saying, let's leave. Nobody's going to become a devotee here, blah, blah, blah. I said, no, I'm not going to leave. So looks what happened. I'm glad I stayed and didn't give up. So sometimes, it takes time to do something, to make devotees and convince them to get initiated. And then make sure that they follow the rules and regulations, and also to make sure that there's no infighting, and everyone works cooperatively and so forth. And they develop the good qualities of devotee. You know, which is very important. Not getting angry, not being greedy, not being lusty, and so forth. So that training is very important. And so once you begin to train devotees, now some people are already trained at least to be a good person, but now they have to be also trained to be a good devotee. But because they've been trained already to be a good person, it's easier for them to get trained to be a good devotee. But if someone has had, a very difficult time in the material world, and was never properly trained to be a good person, then it's going to be harder for them to become Krishna conscious. And it's going to require much more attention of the teachers in Krishna consciousness to help that person, because they've gone through too many years of not being a good person. Right? But it's possible. Anybody can make spiritual advancement. Even the worst person can become the best person in Krishna consciousness. But it might take some time and a lot of attention of the devotee trainers or the devotee preachers. Okay, so as far as being successful, well, my experience was I wasn't able to really get the ball rolling for about 12 years in Seattle. That's because whoever came before me made such a bad reputation of the temple that, I didn't start like from zero. I started with minus, very negative. And to, convince people that something had changed, it took 12 years. It wasn't easy, but somehow or other we survived by Krishna's mercy. Okay, any other question? All right, well, my dear devotees, thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you all for working so hard in the last week for the festival, which was a great success, wonderful success, only because of the sincere and dedicated service of all the devotees. So I want to humbly thank you all for the wonderful services that you did for Prabhupada and Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki